Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Press Break Podcast. I'm Chelsea, and as always, we got Tyler and Jamie along with me. And if you're watching on video, we got a little look going today. Future women's basketball. Yeah, future women basketball so bright we had to wear shades. No, the reality is that one of the three of us got an allergic reaction to their eyeballs last night, and now is wearing sunglasses. And then the other two were like, let's just make it a vibe.
It's just solidarity.
So, comment who you think has the allergic reaction. And if you're watching on or listening on audio, then this doesn't have any.
You can still comment. You can
still comment.
All right, get your comments tweet us because spoiler alert: the glare drives me nuts on mine.
Yeah, so it's not Jamie.
We're taking me out. Of the running,
1 of 3. If you commented Jamie, then you suck. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, let's talk.
And you're really on top of your comments, I suppose.
Yeah, I honestly you're just doing it live. Yeah, okay. Women's basketball is not only having a moment, but we are getting to the point where we are struggling to figure out what to talk about in our short amount of time that we have here. So we're just going to dive into it. I mean, I think some of the biggest news as a whole this week was our first trade of the free agency season. Obviously, we expected Jewell Loyd to be traded, but this one was, I will say, shocking to me. It was announced, it was reported by Annie Costabile in Chicago that Jewell Loyd would be traded to the Las Vegas Aces, and then Vegas would be sending Kelsey Plum to the LA Sparks, and then the LA Sparks would be sending the number 2 pick and Lee Yuru to Seattle. So it was a 3-team trade. I'm sure there's other picks. I know there's like a second round, all that nonsense going in there as well, that I'm sure we'll get confirmation of later in the week. But that's the big trade. It's essentially Jewell Loyd goes to Vegas, Kelsey Plum goes to LA. And honestly, I was shocked about Kelsey Plum going to LA, especially because she was cored and essentially had to say yes because she had to sign technically before she was traded. But yeah, curious what your initial thoughts are on the trade, what you think the fit is, if a team got fleeced.
I mean, I will say my biggest takeaway is honestly less about the players involved. To me, this kind of goes back to when we did our mock free agency. Mm-hmm. I was so shocked to see the number 2 pick as part of the deal, and fairly surprised to have multiple first round picks involved, just because right now to be able to lock in those players coming in where you're going to have the first option to keep their contracts with what we know the situation is going into next year, where essentially any veteran in the league is going to be a free agent, to give up a first round pick, let alone the second pick, is really wild to me this year, and also to do so in the future with a 2026 first round pick involved as well. I get trying to build to be a contender right now, and if this is the move and if that's what it took to make it happen, I get it. But man, they must have really had to get into the weeds to decide that was going to be part of the package, because that's just pretty wild to me right now.
Yeah. The number 2 pick being added was wild, and apparently the reporting was that they were uncertain of who would be available, aka they didn't know if people were going to be declaring for the draft or not, due to the whole extra year of eligibility thing. Again, yeah, that just kind of blew my mind. But Tyler, what do you think about the whole thing?
I'm not gonna lie. This is look, man. You already know. I'm not. This is a major trade. This is a major names. This is a major pick. Frankly, I'm not moved, and I'll tell you why. Okay, I'm not moved. If you're the Aces, you're pretty much going 1 for 1. I think there's an argument that you might be a little bit better off on the defensive end with Kelsey Plum. But again, if Kelsey Plum wanted out, this is about as good 1 for 1 that you're going to be able to find. It timed out perfectly. in the timelines, both for Jewell Loyd, who I feel like has kind of wanted to be an ace for a minute, to be honest. That's just kind of the vibes I've been feeling. Not that that's like any reporting or anything. It's just like that's just kind of the vibe. And again, if Kelsey Plum wanted out, that's about as good of a 1-for-1 replacement you can get. But Jamie, I'm kind of with you because, and here's for anyone that is a basketball fan just in general and also watches the NBA, I'm an Oklahoma City Thunder fan. Okay, and what that means is that draft picks. Like, that's what we do as the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I honestly, at first, when I saw this trade, I'm like, oh my God, okay, big names, big picks moving. This is crazy. We don't really get this very often in the W. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, am I just indoctrinated into the Oklahoma City Thunder mindset, or do I hate this trade for the Los Angeles Sparks? And I think I've reached the point where I don't really like this trade for the Los Angeles Sparks. And the reason why I'm here with it is because I understand, and frankly, hindsight might end up making this a much better trade if players don't declare. So, like, I want to put that preface out there. But let's say the players that we think are going to declare. Olivia Miles, Paige Beckers, so on and so forth. If those are the players that declare, one, we don't really know what's going on with Paige's situation right now, that even if she does declare, I feel like there's a lot of smoke going around about the idea that she doesn't want to play in Dallas, for there not to be at least a little bit of fire is kind of where I'm at with it right now. So, like, you completely put yourself out of the running for that. But also, LA didn't have a ton to deal when it comes to Dallas. Like, if they were trying to swap that, there wasn't a lot of assets. If you're not trying to trade Rakia, if you're not trying to trade Cam, which is fair. But if you're LA, you now have Kelsey Plum, who's age 30. So, like, several very, very good years left. Like, but the thing is Kelsey Plum a championship level player? Obviously, we've seen her be a major piece in almost a three-peat for the Las Vegas Aces. But can she be the foundation of a championship team? That, I don't think so. And especially in a WNBA league that is still, I think we're shifting towards perimeter play. I think we're shifting towards guard play. But at this moment right now, this is the bigs league still. And that's not changing anytime in the immediacy very soon. So now the question becomes, do you think that Rakia Jackson and Cam Brink can become championship foundational pieces in the span of time that Kelsey Plum is still a championship level player? And right now, I don't see that. Not in this way. It would take rapid improvement from Rakia and Cam to see that. And Cam's coming off an injury. Rakia's been very, very good in Unrivaled. And I think that they can be those players in general in the future. But in the next 3 years, I don't know 100% on that.
And that's assuming that you're securing Kelsey Plum for like the entirety of those 3 years.
Exactly. Which is like kind of what it sounded like. You know, I forget who it was, but I saw someone say like the idea for KP and Jewell is to re-sign with these teams that they have now been dealt to. So like I would like to assume that there is some level of reassurance within that, but that still obviously can change and everything. But so instead of now the number 2 pick, which you're going to have being able to grow alongside Rakia and Cam, you are not asking Rakia and Cam to grow up maybe a little bit quicker than initially anticipated.
And coming off of an injury for Cam, still seeing adjustments. I mean, and you're also going to be doing all of that alongside a new coach, which is also part of what's kind of wild. Like when you're bringing in a new coaching staff, you generally can't completely retool your roster. Again, not to beat the dead horse all the way into the ground, but like that's why there's such a unique opportunity with next year. But like to take away the opportunity to then pick out some of the preferred players coming out of college by dealing those draft picks is kind of wild. On the flip side of that, man, Storm, you deal a player that wanted out. And then you get the number 2 pick this year.
Like, come on.
And a 26 first rounder.
Come on.
Plus,
you saw Skylar and NECA. Yeah.
You had some issues with post depth. And so you bring in someone who I think shows tremendous promise, especially as like a consistent backup where, you know, is she going to play 30 minutes a game? No, I don't think so. Maybe she'll get there. But probably not. But I mean, if you're telling me you're getting 10, to, depending on the matchup, even 15, 20 good minutes out of her. I mean, Mercedes Russell, love her to death, but like just was not quite getting it done this past year. I think that this is a pretty big step up as far as capability goes, you know, younger and just a little bit more physically imposing. So very, very impressed in what the Storm were able to get out of it for sure.
And even with the Storm, too, you think about the fact that all they got back was Lee Rue and a second-round pick, which, or not the second pick, not second round, sorry. But you send away Jewell, who is still on contract, and so in your cap space, you technically now have all of this cap space to go into free agency next week and see who wants to come join Skylar Diggins-Smith, NECA probably, and then, like, then this number 2 pick, like they have leverage now in free agency, especially with the fact that, you know, they have like a good facility and, you know, players want to go play there, right? So like, yeah, the Storm definitely like lucked out, especially because Jewell is out the door anyway. And the thing that, again, like with the Sparks, like you're rebuilding, you have these young assets and Brink and Rakia, and this isn't a weak draft by any sense of the word. Like you have Paige, Olivia, Kiki, even going up more, like there's all of these like very good players who could declare or have to come out now, and like to give that away again, like not saying that Kelsey Plum is old, but like, and I understand it was a bit of chemistry too with Dearica Hamby, like Kelsey and Dearica Hamby have a good relationship, and but like it just seems like there's two very distinct things happening. You got the young core, you got the older core. I'm just very confused.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Where it's like, do I think that the Sparks got better in the immediacy? Absolutely. Yeah. Do I think that they are now probably a playoff team? Yeah, probably so. And do I like? I think at the very bottom of the playoffs,
much in the W.
I agree 100%. And so it's like, do I think that playoff experience would help Rakia and Cam grow? Probably. But more than putting Olivia Miles next to them? I don't think so. And that's where I continue to get stuck at. And then, like, for the Storm perspective, I felt like I saw people that were, like, unhappy with this deal. I'm like, no, you got number 2. And so now, if you're Seattle, like, honestly, so, like, when LA owned the pick, it felt pretty open and shut about where they were going to be headed. Assuming everyone declares it was going to be Olivia. Like, that felt pretty set in stone, frankly. But now with Seattle, you could go Olivia 100%. Yeah. Like there's no doubt you could absolutely do that. And I don't like you Skylar Diggins is 34. Like you could have her. And the thing about the number 2 pick, because I saw people like, okay, what if they trade for a win now player? Like, you know, a potentially like I saw Kelsey Mitchell's name being thrown around on social media, like the Satu trade. You could. But the thing is, when you have a number 2 pick, the expectation is that you're going to be able to come in and impact immediately. And so you can get a number 2 pick that can contribute to winning now, whether that be Olivia Miles, whether that be Kiki. And
you're
still
not
build
one
towards
free
the future.
agent away from winning now in Seattle. Like, that's just not the situation.
Exactly. And
you have enough pieces to do both.
So that's
especially now with all that cap space.
That's where I'm intrigued with Seattle, because, like, now, I mean, this completely reopens where we are in the draft, in the sense of like the possibilities. I know one team, the Chicago Sky got to be elated, like just at the possibility that Olivia Miles now falls to them at 3. Because realistically, I think Olivia Miles is still like, I would still, if I had to, all right, who do I think Seattle's going to pick? I would say Olivia Miles right now, but Kiki and Olivia kind of fill the similar role in the sense of like, you have like superstar players in Skylar and NECA who are both getting older, who are both presumably only, 2 years max probably left, give or, like roughly, who are we to know, but like, generally speaking, like they're both like 34-ish. You can pick either one of those players to then be the replacement for the player of their position that presumably only has a couple years left. So like, I would still guess Olivia right now if I'm, if I was gauging where I would expect Seattle to go. But the idea of going Kiki, the idea of, if you really wanted to build long term, a Dominique Malonga potentially to put her next to Ezzy.
True.
Like there's a way to do this, or let's say a certain UConn player wants to go join Nika Mule. Say, hey, what does Seattle have to offer? There's a whole lot more than LA. whether that be a Jordan Horston, whether that be other picks. There's a whole lot more in the treasure chest for the Seattle Storm to offer the Dallas Wings if that is the way that this ends up going and Seattle thinks they have a chance to go and get Paige Beckers.
Yep.
Like, I mean, you think, obviously we know Sue Bird. We know the connection there. You have Nika Mule. That makes so much more sense if Paige doesn't want to go to Dallas, just in terms of the capability of making it happen and why she would want to go somewhere. Seattle makes a whole lot of sense, and is a bit more realistic than LA in the terms of just being able to get it done if that is the way that this shapes up. So Seattle now controls the WNBA to me. I feel like it's Golden State and it's Seattle because Seattle can kind of go different directions. They now have some more money.
They got options.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, the Valkyries are just able to throw, screw you money at anybody if they want.
Like
ask
I
Chelsea.
did in the mocking.
I was about to say, ask Chelsea. So like I mean, again, this free, like, this was the first domino. Now we're waiting on the second one. This is what everyone had been waiting for, was the Jewell Loyd trade. So I'm very excited to see where we head next.
Saturday, maybe even before Saturday, is going to be wild because you think about the fact that all of these players are going to sign 1-year deals. You think about the implications of the fact that these rookies coming in are going to be on the current CBA, and that's going to have cap implications.
Too. Like, that's
so massive
to have that long-term control. Like, just from a player contract perspective. And it's also why those players might not want to come out,
And
so
that's another reason why Seattle also getting an additional draft pick for next year is so wild too. Because say that someone doesn't declare for this year, then you have your own pick next year as well as the one you acquired from Vegas. And in the interest of not extending this any further, my last point that could devolve into its whole own conversation on Seattle now owning the second pick is in the Olivia Miles and Kiki Irifen debate is both of them have proven that they are so capable of playing alongside other players that are very, very close to their own position. And so to have potentially Olivia Miles working with Skylar Diggins-Smith or Kiki working with Nneka Ogwumike, you've seen both of them alongside elite players in theoretically their own position and succeeding. And so that's why that is just a wealth of opportunity for Seattle there and why it's so intriguing. And so obviously that's a couple months away still, but very, very excited about that.
And just last thing, even for Seattle, if Olivia, whoever, Paige, whatever, decide not to declare, this draft is so deep that you have players who are now projected 5, 6, 7. Even if they end up falling down more, you're still getting solid players. This draft is incredibly deep. So Seattle, that's a good move.
That's kind of the case now. There's just a lot more depth. You don't have
talent.
The couple stars that you're sure or pretty sure are going to produce at the next level, and then everyone else you have a lot more potential there.
I mean, that's I think one of the most underrated parts of this deal, just super, super quickly, is the Aces getting their second round pick that they have. Basically they get number 13, which is right outside the first
second round talent. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it could be anyone, if you want to find just just some I'm thinking, I'll tell you right, the very first play that came to mind was Leah Tu King to Vegas.
Yeah.
Just to be just a rotational off the bench piece and just fit in where she needs to fit in. Those are the type of players that can have your maybe higher floor, lower ceiling type of players. But I think that it could be a
Vegas
massive win for Vegas.
And
sure, 100%.
That 13th pick is technically, when you think about it in terms of talent, a first round pick because Vegas had their pick taken away. So technically there is no 9th pick.
Yeah.
They're just skipping it. So then you just go from 8 to 10. So technically their 13th pick is the 12th pick if you want to get all technical with it. So technically
they got a first round pick in Jewell Loyd. You're feeling pretty good about that if you're Vegas. And the Sparks they still have a pick as well. So in the terms of the deep draft, they're a couple spots ahead. The Sparks are still going to add a very, very, very solid rookie to this team. It's just not going to be Olivia Miles, frankly.
Yeah, which is wild. Anyway, speaking of college players, let's kind of backpedal. We'll talk more about WNBA free agency next week, obviously, because players can start signing contracts as of February 1st, which is this Saturday. So obviously we'll have a lot more to talk about next week. But going back to college, there were a few big games this weekend. Obviously, a lot of people watched South Carolina LSU, no longer undefeated LSU. lost to South Carolina in a game that was just like pure hoops. It was just like so pure. It was very fun to see. And then South Carolina played again last night against Tennessee. LSU, I believe, had another game since, unless the schedule just goes really fast. But anyway, the big debate on the social media and through, I guess these past few months is, since South Carolina lost to UCLA, UCLA has been ranked number 1, South Carolina number 2, and that's how it still is. But there's been a lot of debate on like whether or not that should be the case, whether or not South Carolina deserves to be number 1 just based on their difficulty of schedule and how well they've dominated since losing to UCLA. There's been a lot of question about, UCLA's, toughness of schedule, how they, maybe wouldn't be undefeated if they had played some of the teams that South Carolina has had to play. But I'm just curious. I mean, UCLA is going to get a test in the next couple of weeks. They're about to play USC twice in the span of a few weeks, which I think is going to be huge for them. And I personally think like that those games could be split, or even USC has the potential to take both if, they have Kiki and Juju. You can't like discount that. You can't say that that's not a reality. But for me, I'm curious if you two think that UCLA at this point still deserves to be number 1, or if South Carolina, especially with that LSU game, has proved that they are technically the stronger team.
Here's the thing. Jamie, you want to go first, or you want me to?
I'm about to be messy.
Yeah, I'll say UCLA beat South Carolina, and I'm not going to play the what if game. Next question. Yeah. They're number 1. Like, I mean, I'll elaborate slightly, but I don't need to elaborate much more. They played South Carolina. They took care of them. They haven't played the world's softest non-conference schedule. Like, if you truly went out there and every single team on your non-conference was in the 200s, okay, but that wasn't the case. I mean, it was not nearly as good as South Carolina's, but it was not terrible. And then you get into conference play, you get into the Big Ten, and you've taken care of business at home, on the road, in tough situations, in times where you haven't had your entire roster available. And now you're going into the home stretch here where, as we said, you have 2 different games against against Southern Cal. Like you have these bigger opportunities to prove it. But if this were another year where they hadn't seen each other in the non-con, this would be a huge debate. But in the current day, UCLA beat South Carolina.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. You want to talk about who would win in a rematch if we get to that point in the postseason? Fine, let's have that conversation when we get there. But in the meantime, it's UCLA.
Yeah. Tyler?
I agree. I mean, look, I to your point, Jay, I love the way you ended that, because I think that's the dialogue to be had. Because I think that South Carolina is playing better now than they played at UCLA? 100%. Like I don't think that is undeniable. But you lost. Here's the thing. South Carolina has depth. They have talent. They have hype. Like anything you could think of, they pretty much got it. Whether it be just from recruits. You heard Mulkey talking about it in the post-game press conference. They got 10 McDonald's All-Americans. Like, okay, Kim. There's only one team that can match
the
that.
impoverished program of LSU.
Yes.
I mean, how could
Thoughts
they?
And prayers. Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers.
There's only one team that can truly match that right now. And there's only one team that can beat South Carolina at South Carolina's game right now, and they did. You've already seen it.
Lauren Betts.
So, and
with some respect.
That's I know we had kind of talked about it
last week.
But goodness gracious, Lauren Betts is so good.
Oof.
And to kind of expand upon that, like, it's not just Lauren Betts. Like Lauren Betts is playing ridiculous. Kiki Rice has arrived. Like this feels like the Kiki Rice that we have kind of been waiting for a little bit. And the fact that both her and Lauren Betts have been able to hit their strides this season in the way that they have feels massive. And that's not even getting into the ridiculous depth that they have. Again, like this is I think part of this conversation also might be people slightly underrating the Big Ten. like it's not an easy conference just to go out there and handle business every night. Like
No.
we've seen it and it's been happening, but like I mean, we just saw Ohio State, you know, like how like them losing their first game, like just kind of randomly, you know, to most. Not to Jamie, but to most. And so like for me, again, if you want to have the conversation about if they played again on a neutral court in March Madness, who would win? I'm willing to hear that out. But right now, because I mean, I want to give South Carolina their props because again, they are playing their best basketball this season right now. We talked about the gauntlet that they had to run, the 5 ranked games. It was right as Ashton Watkins gets out for the season. We're like, okay, we're gonna find out. And Lord, not only did we find out, but every opposing team found out about the death machine that is South Carolina. You might be missing like one cog, but I promise you the machine just keeps rolling on. It doesn't matter.
Like the fact that they have Malaysia Fulwiley coming off the bench. Like that alone, like Malaysia Fulwiley could go to any other team and she's the centerpiece of the entire team.
Their bench outscores their starters.
Yeah.
Like the thing is also I think the biggest difference right now for South Carolina is Joyce Edwards.
Yes.
And the fact that Joyce Edwards is starting to kind of be given the keys a little bit more. She's settled in. She's like that Tennessee game, she was incredible. Like and
the whole team understands each other a little bit better.
Yes, absolutely. And like I don't think I've been seeing, you know, a little bit of like freshman of the year cases for Joyce. I don't think that she's gonna have the time to make up ground on Michaela Blakes from Vanderbilt and Sarah Strong from UConn. But in terms of like talent and like how she can produce, she's in that tier undoubtedly 100%. Like she is in the top tier, will be an all freshman team, but not freshman of the year. Not just, again, it's just taking a little bit more time, whether it just be an increase in minutes, again, a little bit of time of getting comfortable. Again, there's a whole lot of players on the South Carolina team, and before Watkins went down, there was even more depth in the post position. So just kind of finding that role in the way that she needed to be on the South Carolina team took a little bit of time, which was, hey, okay, you're a freshman. You got so much talent around you. That is totally fine. But now we're seeing Joyce Edwards. And if this Joyce Edwards comes in to a UCLA rematch, I think that could be a key. But also, UCLA's gotten a whole lot better. And I think people haven't been watching that because there hasn't been the marquee matchups. Like, they haven't been really tapped in the way that you've been tapped in with South Carolina because you've had all these ranked matchups where
but if you needed a big matchup, you got UCLA against Maryland to really prove it because, my lord, the way I literally wrote in my notes from that game because that's who I am. That they did the South Carolina thing that they do so often, which is simply outlasting opponents, where even when they're able to stick around, make it a game, at a certain point, the switch just flips, and it's not even that UCLA all of a sudden remembered who they are and started playing better. It's that they were simply able to outlast what Maryland was able to throw at them. And, you know, some foul trouble caught up to them, some fatigue, you know, just having shots that fell earlier in the game not fall. And all of a sudden you're talking about a game that for 3/4 of the time was within single digits, all of a sudden ends up a 15-point win for UCLA when it looked so much closer for the rest of that game. And so that's what they've been able to really add to it and get that continued balance around Lauren Betts, be able to get not just like perimeter looks for the rest of the team, but actually getting into the paint, getting themselves easier, simpler shots. And again, that's all the things that we've said about the most elite teams. You talk about South Carolina and their ability to use that depth to get to the rim, to make things easy on themselves. And so that's kind of what we're seeing with those two. And that's another reason why, yeah, you want to talk about a rematch, whatever, that's fine. But also, like, do people really put that much emphasis on being the number one team in the AP? Like, not to be whatever, but like, I'm sorry, there's so many other things we could talk about. Like, I can't imagine like spending that much time on discourse on the topic, but like, you know, people are talking about it, so we should, but I don't know. I feel like everything kind of bears out eventually. So
it's a very marginal thing, especially when you start getting closer to postseason, which if one thing's going to be a movie, it's the Big Ten tournament because, it's going to be It's
That's
just
gonna be crazy. Yeah,
it's gonna be wild.
The SEC
I mean, really, the
too,
rest-
though, like there's been
Yeah.
some
The
wild,
SEC, of course.
especially
Yeah,
like
but
earlier
the
rounds.
SEC is always a wild tournament.
That's fair. That's fair.
Like
Yeah.
last year with the Camila Cardoso, like step back 3 business, like SEC's been giving us a show. But the Big Ten this year is going to be just wild. And yeah, I definitely agree with both of you. UCLA, they did what they had to do, and that's win against the top team, and they proved themselves. And again, Lauren Betts is just having a time. She scored 30, I think it was 33 points the other day, career high. And the fact that like there is good evidence to suggest that she will not be declaring for the draft this year, just given that she's like said she wants to play with her sister, who is already committed to UCLA. Just like next year is going to be. It's gonna be good.
I think there's already an argument to be made that right now Lauren Betts is the best player in college basketball.
Yeah,
and like and we're getting another year of this. So like,
another year of Juju versus Lauren Betts.
Battle of LA next year is going to be even crazier. I feel like, but just let's put some respect in UCLA's name. They're going to get a chance to prove it in the Battle of LA, like and like really solidify where they're at. But like,
if I could be in LA for that, oof.
I will just say I have to point out I had one of the funniest interactions I've had on Twitter for a while, talking about how I think that Lauren and Sienna Betts being together is going to be so much fun to watch. And jumping into the conversation was Jessica Keller, who's an assistant coach at Nebraska, and her reply was, "Fun for who exactly?"
No, literally, the rest of the Big Ten is.
That's a fair point. Fun for us covering it. For y'all having to scheme for it, I do not envy you.
Thoughts and prayers.
I said, who said that? I was dying.
That's hilarious. Man.
Oh God, that's gonna be insane. Because Sienna's really good. Her sister's really good. She's really good.
Yeah. Oh my God. Battle of LA coming up. And like imagine those all those teams that have to do the LA road trip where you go hit USC and then like 2 days later
real life thoughts and prayers actually to them.
Like that's rough for you. And I mean we've seen a few teams get the worst of it. Michigan was one of them I saw, all those Big Ten teams having to do the road trip. Oof. Rough. But speaking of Michigan, this is, I guess, a good segue to get into some quick hits from the past week. I know there's a few games we want to talk about. I'll get us started because I was talking about this last week, and then also my dreams were crushed. But I have to shout out Theron Halleck because that game, Michigan State versus Michigan, first time that they had matched up as both ranked opponents, both like the best iterations of this team that we've seen in a while. Great first half from both teams. Michigan went into the half up 3 points. And then second half comes and Michigan State's Theron Halleck goes on what I can only describe as like a tirade, a rampage, or whatever. Like she had ice in her veins. She was shooting like it was nobody's business. And like I love when a player comes in and has that like family history with the rivalry. Like her parents played for Michigan State, her brother, or I think there was like an uncle somewhere in there. And she just like knew what this rivalry meant to herself, to her team. She wanted to put on a show on the big stage. And that's how you do it. She absolutely pulverized Michigan in the second half. They end up winning by about like 20-ish points. And now we're ranked 16th overall. So man, just like that was a great game too. But yeah, shout out to Theron Halleck who had herself a game on, in enemy territory. But I know Jamie has a few games that she wants to hit as well. So what are your quick hits?
Yeah, call the ice though.
So I mean, not that I'm a Big 12 homer or anything.
Yeah, but that was an interesting cup choice. Just,
I had to go for the bit. No, super quick on the Big 12. Dang, is it tough to win on the road? You've got Oklahoma State taking down TCU. On Oklahoma State's home court. Colorado hosted K-State, who obviously is now without Ayoka lead, but even so is a tremendous team. Colorado got the win, and that's after they opened Big 12 play, taking down West Virginia on their home court as well. They're 4-0 in Big 12 play on their home court. They're 0-4 on the road. So like it's a very weird kind of dichotomy there. They're getting a lot better though. They're definitely a team that's probably going to play a factor in the final. situation in the Big 12 just as a team that has the opportunity to play spoiler in a big way. And then West Virginia went to Arizona and dropped a game there. So a lot of very interesting things happening there. It's a strange league at the best of times, and a lot of really wild games happening there. Shout out on the UCLA Maryland game. One of the best broadcasts I've heard in a long time. Zora Stevenson, LaChina Robinson, I am obsessed with you. I love you. Analysis, spot on, incredible. No other notes on that. And then Florida State, North Carolina delivered in such a big way. If you need a justification to continue tuning in here, we put you on.
We did.
I did. And man, the women's game, the ability to save your timeouts and advance the ball adds such an incredible dimension. And so you get back to back potential game-winning plays that makes it so that we're talking the absolute definition of a buzzer beater from Tania Latson going through 4 defenders from the best defensive team in the ACC. Like, that is the coldest thing. After passing up a shot on the last offensive possession,
I've ever seen. Like not exaggerating.
She gave it up, trusted her teammate to get a look on the last possession, and it paid off. And then coming back with 3 seconds left, you're getting 2 defenders in the air with a pump fake. You're going through and you're splitting 2 defenders. You've got like 6'5" coming in over you, trying to block the shot, and you finish and make it look easy. Like, that is absurd. Tania Latson legacy moment. Like, man.
Like, and also quick,
fun.
About a month and a half ago, because on I do a weekly Player of the Year column on Fansided, and a while ago, someone on Blue Sky, and I can't remember their handle, but they said, you got to shout out Tania Latson, and this was like a month and a half ago. I was like, okay, let me dig deep into Tania Latson, whatever. And even at the time, she was putting up like wild numbers.
She's been that girl.
Been that girl. So I was like, okay, cool. And like now, like getting that national attention, totally deserved. But like Press Break's been on Tania Latson for a second, but also shout out to that person on Blue Sky who put me on Tania Latson. And yeah, like they're ranked. We got to shout out our Vandy women's basketball program.
I was gonna say, I was leaving that for Tyler.
Come on, come on. You already know I'm gonna talk about Vandy. Come on now, that's a big win. Ranked. It's no longer ranked Vandy. It's ranked Vandy.
Yeah.
Put that in the
First
past.
time in over a decade, baby.
It's here. It's here. Yep. The best young duo in the entire nation, Michaela Blakes and Camille Pierre. They're here. They're here. They're here. They took their lumps in SEC play. There might be another bump or 2 in the road, but like, man, I don't want to see them in March if I'm any other team. Like this, the pure just like production that they get out of that duo is ridiculous. I mean, it's nasty. A couple teams I'm monitoring, which we've kind of touched on a little bit. Texas and Ohio State both pull off close wins.
Yeah,
but I'm not exactly convinced.
Should they have been that close?
No. That is my worry right now. Yes. Because Texas getting the win at Ole Miss, it's tough to win on the road in the SEC. Ole Miss
and without Aaliyah Moore.
Yes. So again, like you win the game. You do what you got to do. You win the game. You move on. So like you can't knock it too much. You win the game. But Texas has a pretty insane February on deck, y'all. You host South Carolina, you host LSU, and so I'm looking at this game where like I'm not incredibly moved by, like, it felt like they outsized Ole Miss in this. With Taylor Jones gets 24 points.
They do that,
and which is what they do. And like, hey, why shouldn't they? It works. But when you go against other teams that are able to recruit similar size, then what? Like, what is the next step for that? And so I'm really eyeing Texas right now. I'm not panicking. There's no crazy red button to press or anything. But I'm just intrigued at what their next evolution kind of looks like as we inch closer towards the SEC tournament. But for them, they have several big time matchups where, like, we kind of talked about UCLA, like, prove it, solidify yourself. Yeah. Like, Texas really hasn't had – they've had good wins. They haven't had that great win yet. And you get 2 chances on your home court in the coming weeks. And so like I'm very intrigued just to kind of see like how they lead up to those two major games. I think you go with South Carolina first, and then there's one game in between, and then LSU. It's like a Sunday and
Yep,
like,
it's
a week
South
apart.
Carolina at Kentucky, and then
Oh,
LSU at
geez.
home.
Okay, so like there's
Right.
so I feel like
To
Kentucky.
that point, Kentucky's schedule is about to get a lot tougher. The SEC too.
Yeah.
So there's like
Yeah.
there's a
There's a
lot of
couple teams.
schedules for like the top teams in the SEC that are really backloaded. So we're gonna start to see some separation there.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. And again, Ohio State as well. Like obviously, you suffer your first loss, you win on the road at Nebraska. But again, like when it comes to like, I feel like as you're heading into these matchups, these close wins as high-ranked teams aren't what you want to be seeing. Like again, you can't not go win too much. You won, and I want to emphasize that. But when it comes to building momentum, to building confidence, to go and get those great wins as two teams that really haven't had like that marquee great win. You've had several good wins, but not great wins in that way. I'm kind of eyeing Texas and Ohio State as we head into February to see where they might kind of end up by the time we do reach those big games. I'm kind of looking for some hallmark dominant performances against teams that they quote unquote should be beating. So that's what I kind of took away from this weekend, on top of the games that Jamie had already mentioned, and Vanderbilt. Shout out,
Let's go. We know hoops.
Joyce Edwards and Michaela Blake's co-SEC Freshman of the Week.
Let's go.
Ain't mad at it.
Which is like the easiest.
Come on,
college
easiest media vote that they probably had like
right
the whole time. Yeah, no, that's I'm mad at that one bit. I mean, again,
not at all.
Joyce is coming along like crazy.
So good.
Side note, if we just want to like throw some names out there though, Sarah Ashley Barker for Bama being back, huge.
Yes,
that's
massive.
part of why like it was incredible for Vandy to pull out that win, because man, she is mature, she is composed, she had an incredible game after being out for a couple weeks. So that's
36, right? I think it was 36.
Yeah, out for 2 full weeks and comes back and drops a cool 36, like almost a double-double, had a bunch of like had it together, looked like she had been just raring to come back, so that was big. And then Texas A&M, like inexplicably,
they just decided to be good one day.
They just woke up and they like remembered who they were. I always looked at their roster and like knowing their coaching staff, I was just like, nah, they shouldn't be struggling like this. This doesn't make sense to me. And then it's like they woke up and had the same thought and took down Kentucky and gave LSU a game. I was like, oh.
They just kind of wake up some days deciding to be...
Talking about a spoiler in conferences, Texas A&M's kind of looking like that one right now.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Oh, man. What a time. There's just so much going on. Jamie, was that the end of your hot ones list?
That's it.
Okay.
Yes.
Wanted to make sure we got all of yours.
Oh, I appreciate it. I could sit here for the next couple hours, but you know.
Yeah. Oh, we all could. We couldn't even get to Unrivaled and Nafisa Collier. We couldn't get to so many things that we wanted to talk about. But I mean, we got to start doing 2 a week at some point.
No,
y'all don't want to hear our voices that much.
Hey,
but nah.
We're getting good support. We appreciate y'all. We're gonna keep figuring out ways to get the content out there.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh man. Well, thank you. I guess this is a good time to say thank you for your comments, all of our loyal friends here who have been commenting, and whether it's about college basketball or WNBA stuff or Unrivaled. We appreciate you all watching. We love doing it. So we'll be back next Tuesday to talk WNBA free agency, of course, because that, like I said, kicks off this weekend. And we got so much more going, and hopefully we won't have to wear shades next week. But future's bright. So that's another thing, but make sure to comment, like, subscribe. New episodes of the Press Break come out every Wednesday, sometimes Tuesday if we're feeling, a little bit excited about what we're talking about. But make sure to subscribe to Her Hoop Stats, because there's a bunch of other great podcasts every day. And check us out on the internets. If you're seeing us on video, we have our tags here with Jamie, Tyler, and Chelsea. Until next week, this has been another episode of the Press Break podcast. Thanks for listening.